So for getting started with your tiny house, if you're doing like a classic tiny house and not the shipping container one, is you're going to first click new, and you want to make sure you're using that architectural template. And then here is our workspace. So I like to start by drawing out the walls first. So I'm going to choose my wall tool, and I'm just going to draw mine to the max size that you guys are allowed. Obviously you can go smaller, but this is the max. So 8.5 feet wide. Oops. Let's try that again here. And then 32 feet long. Actually, we'll have to double check these measurements anyway. So there is our base of our tiny house. I can already tell that these dimensions are going from the center of the walls, so we want them to go to the outside. So I'm going to change over to my modify button and pick a wall. So then it tells me my walls right now are going from the inside. So if I click this little dot in the middle, it moves to the outside on both sides. And then I'm going to click on my dimension and type in 32. And I'm going to click this little dimension button so it stays visible. And then I'm going to click the long end so I can dimension this other way. And again, moving the dimensions to the outside and make it 8.5 feet. There we go. Oops. I'm going to keep that dimension visible. So I know the default with Revit is that it makes the walls 20 feet high. So I'm going to click and drag over my walls to select just the walls. There we go. And instead of them being an unconnected height of 20 feet, our max is 13.5 feet. Depending on if you're doing a different design or things like that, you might not need that full 13.5 feet tall. And I can go to my 3D view, and there is the base frame of the tiny house. So another thing we need to edit is how our walls are constructed. Right now, I drew it as the basic wall, 8 inches, but it's going to be a little bit different for your tiny house. I'm going to click and drag and select all of my walls again, and I'm going to edit the type of wall. And I'm going to duplicate it so I can make my own tiny wall. I'm going to click duplicate and call it tiny house wall. And we're going to edit the structure of it, because right now it just has this generic 8-inch structure. So we're going to start on the outside of our wall with siding. So I noticed from experience that in here there isn't an exact siding material, so we're going to have to create it. So instead of structure, it's going to actually be a finish layer. And by clicking on by category, there's those 3 little dots, and we're going to use the plywood sheathing to duplicate this. So if I were to edit it right now, it would change what is set up with plywood sheeting. I'm going to duplicate the selected material. So here is that duplicated version. So I'm going to change the name of this one to horizontal siding. And call it siding. So then for graphics, right now it has like this brownish color, which is okay. No pattern with it. You can go in later and change that kind of stuff too, which will make it change what the surface of it looks like. So we can make it have like horizontal lines, because then it would kind of look like siding when we look at it in a 3D view. For appearance, like when we do rendering and things like that, right now it's going to be a plywood looking wood, which is probably not what you want. So to change that, I'm going to go into this asset browser, and let's make this a little bit bigger here. there is this appearance library. And if you go down to siding, there are all these different options for siding. So this is where you can choose if you want different colors of siding, metal, split log, shiplap. Probably the most common is just going to be like this horizontal 4-inch or 6-inch siding, this generic siding. I'm just going to do white. And so to bring it over, I'm going to click this little dot so it replaces a current asset in the editor with this asset. And then I can close this, so then I can look here, and I'm going to have this white siding on my house. So then I'm going to click apply and OK. So now we have that horizontal siding that we just created. It is not going to be 8 inches thick. It's going to be 1/2 inch. I'm going to type in 0.5. And it converts it to inches and fractions. So I'm going to insert, actually we'll just add in 3 more here. So this is going to go all the way at the top. So from our exterior side, we have our siding first. And then we're going to need some sheathing. Actually, we're going to need 1 more. So then after our siding layer, we are going to add in our house wrap. So this is going to be a membrane layer, and it's going to be the air infiltration barrier, so that keeps airflow out and things like that. And then we are going to have a structure layer with our plywood sheathing. So this is that one that we used to copy, so that's why you don't want to change that original one, because then it wouldn't be there anymore. And then we need our 2x4s, our softwood lumber, and then lastly our sheetrock as our finished layer. So sheetrock in here is our gypsum wallboard. Okay, and I'm going to go back through and change these thicknesses. Our membrane layer, that's going to be 0 thickness. That's like paper thin. And then our plywood is going to be 1/2 inch. Our lumber is going to be 2x4, so it's actually 3.5 inches thick. And then our gypsum wallboard is 1/4 inch. And there we go. So our total thickness of our walls is 4 3/4 inch thick. And okay, so it should have been modified. All those have made it a little bit thinner there. All right, so now that we have our walls, we need to add in our floor. So I'm going to choose floor, and I am just going to use this 10-inch wood finish, and I'm going to actually edit it, and I'm going to duplicate it. So I'm going to call it Tiny Home Floor and go into edit. So we're just going to be adding a couple of things in here, modifying a couple of things. So our oak flooring on top is totally fine. If you wanted to use a different material, carpet or things like that, that is up to you. Plywood sheathing at 3/4 inch. And then above this structure and before the plywood sheeting, I'm going to insert a new one. And this is going to be our membrane layer. So we just need to add that air infiltration layer to help keep everything warmer and dry, things like that. And then our structure, we're not going to be using quite as wide of wood. We're going to be using 2x6s, which run actually 5.5 inches thick. So it's making it a little bit less thick. So it's only 7 inches now instead of that 10 inch. So I'm going to hit OK, OK. And then I am going to draw my floor boundaries. So on the outside of these walls. There we go. So there is my wood floor. And obviously, if you want different flooring in your bathroom or kitchen or things like that, you can modify if you want like ceramic tile or just whatever your tiny home floor, your choice is for that. You can change that up. So with our tiny home, if it's not going on a trailer, then you're going to want to put it on a cement slab. So if I look at my plan from one of the side views, I'm going to actually change this height to be that max 13 feet 6 inches. So that goes up to the top. And then, so our floor is right underneath this level line, which is normal there. So I need to add another level line so that I can add a concrete slab. And you could have started with drawing a concrete slab and doing things on top of that also. Just kind of depends on what you want to do. So back in architecture, we're going to create a level by clicking and dragging across. So this dimension right here from the bottom of level 1 to this one, we want it to be 7 inches. So the reason because of this is that's where the actual bottom of our floor is. And then when we choose to make our slab foundation, it actually builds from underneath of that. So I'm just going to keep it as level 3 for right now. So I'm going to go to structure and from my level 1 view and choose slab. And I'm going to choose the walls that I want it to go under. So, and I obviously want the slab to be on the outside of the wall. So I'm going to click the little arrow. So now my purple lines are on the outside. If you wanted to have an offset where your slab is slightly bigger, you can also do that. Or if you wanted a slab extended on one side because you're going to do a porch or something like that, you can, instead of picking the walls, drawing your shape or modifying it that way. I'm going to do a green check mark. Highlighted floors overlap. So let's see if I can look at that. Let's look at the 3D view. Oh, this time it did them on top of each other. So that foundation slab, I believe I have it checked right now. So I can put that on level 3. There we go. Just drawing it on the wrong level. So I should have been on my level 3 floor plan sheet because that's where I wanted it to go. But so now we can see our walls, our floor, and our cement slab. And actually, looking at my 3D view, my walls are inside out. So if I go back to my level 1, I need to flop these arrows to get my siding on the outside. There we go. So that is how you would do a concrete slab. Another option is if you want your tiny home to be able to be on a trailer. So on Schoology, I've uploaded a file that I found from a website called Revit City that is a trailer bed, and I'm going to show you now how to bring that in.